Okay, I would say it very shortly. There are positive forces that are beyond this planet, very positive forces that are working on the liberation of this planet for thousands and thousands of years, and they were preparing for this time. And now they have come to the point where they're beginning to communicate with the surface population through me and through some other messengers, one way or the other. And time has come now for the surface population of the planet to actively cooperate with the plan. And what they said to me, what they communicated to me was that one of the critical factors here is human free will, human decision. So if the critical mass of human beings make that decision for liberation, liberation will happen. And with the event that we have, like the one that we have next week, we are helping with that critical mass. The other factor, which is very important here, is they communicated to me that one of the main reasons for the delays, one of the main reasons why this haven't happened before, is that human beings have not learned to cooperate with each other. Instead of that, there are accusations, fights, conflicts, and most of this is artificial. It is created by so-called archons and their minions, reptilians on the astral plane. I would say that those beings on the astral plane, or shall we say non-physical planes, they have quite a good overview of human weak spots of every human being. And what they do, they pressure upon those weak spots and they create conflict. And this is what was happening very intensively in the last few months, especially just because we are so close to the final breakthrough. This is why the other side has become a little bit crazy and a little bit paranoid and are trying to do whatever they can to stop the progress of life. But yet again, here, the key decision is the free will of every human being. Will I be subjected to those attacks? Uh, it is a decision for every human being. Will I be tool for those attacks or not? So I would ask every human being who's listening to this to make the choice to say no to that influence and learn to support each other and to cooperate with each other and do not accuse anybody without having real proof. So this is my message at this point.
So, would you say these so-called reptilians or astral beings are they just essentially thoughts which get in the way of positive progress? How does someone who's not familiar with these terms understand this?
They are real beings, but are not living on the physical plane. I think most people will agree with me that the physical plane is not the only plane of existence that we have. And without understanding that there is more to this world than just the physical plane, we cannot liberate this planet because the key influence that is blocking the progress of life is not on the physical plane. The physical cabal could not control humanity without massive assistance from the astral plane. The wars could not be made, could not be created without that massive support of dark forces on the astral plane. It would not be possible. So, uh, by becoming aware of this, we become stronger because we know what's going on. And one of the key factors here is for people to just to be aware of what's going on. And then the light will be stronger, and at a certain point, will be strong enough for the final breakthrough for the event.
Now, you hear about in various sources or channels so-called Earth allies. And these are, I guess, people who exist in various military agencies, intelligence groups, etc. What do they have to do different than just the regular citizens that has to do with this plan and the day of decision?
Okay, I will explain. The term Earth Allies actually goes to the resistance movement. This is the description of the resistance movement, a different description of the same thing. And most of the resistance movement exists below the surface of the Earth in their underground base and installations. There are very few resistance movement operatives on the surface of the planet. And yes, some of them are inside the military. And those who are inside the military have contact with some other people inside the military who are the ones who are actually carrying out the plan of liberation. And this is not limited just to US military, it is also in other parts of the world. It's a global operation. This is something that people need to understand. It is not located just inside the United States. The whole planet needs to be liberated at once.
When these individuals in the various agencies are made aware that they are an Earth ally, what kind of experience might they have that would begin that journey? Do you know that? Is that something that you're aware of?
Some of those people were contacted physically in the last few decades and were given physical proof about the existence of the resistance movement. And some of them chose to cooperate.
Oh, so since that time they have chosen to help in some way. Are they contacted individually and given certain tasks, or how does that work?
Yes, mostly they are contacted individually and given very specific intel just pertaining to their own specific mission. And they're given not just enough evidence so they understand what's going on and that certain trust is created. Because this network of light is based on trust. A certain amount of trust needs to be created for this to be successful.
This is interesting, and it corroborates something that has happened to me in the last 6 months, but I have not yet disclosed on my site. I was contacted by a Vietnam veteran who had a storied military lineage, and he contacted me because of a whistleblower that I hosted on my site named Dutch. And he actually reported to me that he was abducted during the course of his service, and was essentially had a period of 10 hours of missing time. And when he awoke, he found that the individual he was with, he could communicate somewhat telepathically, and he said that he was given a mission by these beings, which he described as energetic beings. They didn't have physical form, and what he had to do initially was help confiscate and dispose of weaponry, which was being reverse engineered by, he said, other extraterrestrials that would be used against the human race.
Yes, things like that were happening, but not by the resistance movement. The resistance movement never abducted anybody. Mostly the contact was made by a short conversation and presentation of evidence. And of course, all those conversations remained confidential. The ones who were contacted did not talk about it to anybody.
So it's a real physical contact then?
Yes, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I wanted to also ask you about some comments recently made by Drake. I'm not sure if you have listened to the show or heard of this.
The show, but I read some comments elsewhere on it. Very well.
Well, I'm going to play the clip real quick so that those who haven't heard it can have some context, and then I'll let you respond.
So, keep that in mind. Cobra 20,000 portal. Ladies and gentlemen, Cobra has put out some blatantly false, totally misleading horse hockey on several occasions. And no,
when he came public,
if you didn't work for the cabal, you wouldn't have anything to say. Okay? Professional shill? Absolutely.
Okay. When he came public in March of this year, he was actually having a contact with one of those people who were contacted by the resistance. But after some events happened in the early May of this year, that contact was disconnected. And he had some conditional contact through the whole May and June, but then he lost it. And actually, he lost his main source of intel. And I would simply say that he is not informed any longer. So he makes his choices based on some mixture of information and disinformation. So what he's saying about me now is disinformation. I'm quite surprised that he actually listens to things like former White Hat or similar sources.
Gotcha. In the master plan post, you mentioned that from a very credible source that Keenan is not the trustee for the collateral accounts. I'm not sure if you can reveal that information at this time, but could you speak about what's happening in the financial world and the new financial system?
Okay, the first thing was happening in the beginning of this year. I have received reports from the resistance that the White Dragon Society is not as white as it should be, and there were some infights and fights over the collateral accounts taking place there. And this was the first delay that was happening. Then I start receiving reports during the summer of this year that not everything is okay with this whole Keenan situation, and from other sources as well. But I didn't want to post anything before I was 100% sure. So I checked this thing directly through a contact which is very close to the real trustee of the collateral accounts. And yes, he said to me, Keenan is not the real deal. So I'm just relaying the message I received. I cannot say for myself because I don't know Keenan and I don't know the trustee directly. But one of my contacts, who is actually in very close contact with the real trustee, confirmed this to me with evidence. And to say it shortly, there is a lot of infighting and a lot of greed taking place in various supposed positive groups who are supposed to bring those collateral accounts to humanity. And I am in contact with other groups that are not exposed to the public, who are working with much more positive motivation to bring those accounts to the public. But I will not announce anything because that would not serve the purpose. The purpose is actually the action itself, so the thing starts happening. And those collateral accounts will be brought to humanity exactly at the moment when the cabal will lose its power, one way or the other.
Like all posts on the Golden Rule, you must use your own discernment when considering what Cobra or anyone else says is true. I'm just providing the content for you to make your own decision about what that information means to you. Fitting then that my discussion with Cobra focuses on decisions and the day of decision. I also thought the contrast between Drake and Cobra's comments were interesting, made more so by the fact that Drake never really offered details of what Cobra's disinformation was regarding. While Cobra keeps much of his information guarded, I do find myself agreeing with much of what he says. I happen to agree that we have a free will problem here on Earth and don't see what's so disinformation about urging all human beings to make the decision to free themselves. His words resonate with me, and I bet that also applies to many of you out there. In truth, declaring your sovereignty in the face of our tyrants is really the only truly effective course of action we have left to make. And isn't it our duty after all? That said, I'm not an intelligence expert. I'm just a kid trying to figure things out. So I don't know enough about the situation with the collateral accounts or the validity of any of Cobra's sources or any of the legal action being taken. So I welcome your comments below if you have evidence to provide. I also welcome any discussion or questions for consideration for future interviews. In closing, I asked Cobra about his upcoming conferences, and you can listen to that right after this. But I did want to thank you for listening and visiting the Golden Rule.
Yes, actually, I would invite everybody who would like to go to join those conferences because it is not only the presentation of Intel, it is an energetic event. It's a transformational event for everybody who is willing to participate. And those conferences are actually a very good thing. I know that many people are doing conferences similar to this, and each of those events actually helps in reaching the critical mass for the planet. So everybody is invited. Also, I would like to say to people that now it's time for everybody to learn to be tolerant and learn to cooperate. Because what I received from the Pleiadians is not only the cabal needs to be removed, but they will appear only to the extent that people learn to cooperate with each other and learn not to judge each other. They are a peaceful nation and they don't want to be involved in a human situation directly until the humanity is ready, at least to a certain extent.